All right, so today I want to talk about something that honestly doesn't get discussed enough in a real way: the differences and similarities between men's and women's mental health. And before I even start, I want to make something clear. This is not a competition. This isn't men have it worse or women have it worse. Mental health is hard for everybody. Pain is pain. Stress is stress. Depression feels awful no matter who you are. But at the same time, I think pretending men and women experience mental health the exact same way is unrealistic. We're raised differently, expected to act differently, and judged differently when we express emotion. That changes how people deal with anxiety, depression, loneliness, stress, insecurity, and everything else. And honestly, I've always felt like men's mental health is one of those topics people say they care about until men actually start talking. Then suddenly people get uncomfortable. Like, people love the phrase men should open up more, but sometimes when men do open up, the reaction is weird. People don't always know how to handle it. Some guys even get treated differently afterward. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons a lot of men stay quiet in the first place. But before I go too deep into that, I want to talk about the similarities first, because there actually are a lot at the core. Men and women struggle with a lot of the same things: anxiety, depression, fear of failure, feeling alone, feeling misunderstood, wanting validation, wanting to feel important, wanting people to care. Everybody wants connection. Everybody wants to feel like they matter to somebody. I think social media especially has made mental health harder for everybody. You're constantly comparing yourself to people online. Someone always looks happier than you, more successful than you, better looking than you, richer than you, more confident than you. Even when you logically know social media is fake, it still gets into your head. And honestly, I think everybody does this thing where they assume other people have life figured out more than they actually do. Most people are just improvising. Most adults are winging it. Nobody wakes up magically understanding life. Some people are just better at pretending they do. Another similarity is pressure. Men and women both deal with pressure constantly, just in different forms. Women feel pressure to look perfect, act perfect, balance careers and relationships and expectations. Men feel pressure to succeed financially, stay emotionally strong, and never look weak. And that pressure builds over time. One thing I think both men and women experience a lot is loneliness, even if it looks different on the outside. You can be surrounded by people and still feel isolated. You can have friends and still feel like nobody actually knows you. I think that's becoming more common now too. People talk more online than in person. Everybody's connected digitally, but emotionally, a lot of people are disconnected. Conversations feel shorter. Attention spans are fried. Everybody's distracted. Even hanging out with people sometimes feels like competing with their phone. And this might sound random, but I honestly think people underestimate how much sleep, food, sunlight, and exercise affect mental health. Sometimes people think every emotional problem is deep and psychological, when sometimes your brain is just exhausted. If you sleep 4 hours a night, never go outside, eat garbage constantly, and isolate yourself, your brain is going to feel terrible. That doesn't mean all mental health issues can be fixed by going to the gym. Obviously not. But physical health and mental health are connected way more than people admit. Now, when it comes to differences between men and women, this is where things get more complicated. I think one major difference is how emotion is socially accepted. Women are generally allowed to express sadness more openly, crying, venting, talking about feelings. Socially, those things are more accepted for women. Men, on the other hand, are usually expected to stay composed no matter what. A guy can be falling apart mentally and still feel pressure to act normal. And a lot of men learn this young. Little boys hear things like, "Man up, stop crying, be tough, don't be soft." Even if people don't mean harm by it, those messages stick. So a lot of men don't grow up learning how to process emotions properly. They learn how to hide them. And hidden emotions don't disappear. They usually come out somewhere else. That's why I think men's mental health problems sometimes show up differently. Instead of openly saying I'm depressed, some guys become angry all the time, or numb, or reckless, or they isolate themselves. or they overwork themselves constantly because staying busy distracts them from thinking. Some men literally don't know how to explain what they feel emotionally because they've spent years suppressing it. And I'll give a personal opinion here. I think society sometimes only values men based on usefulness. That sounds harsh, but I genuinely think a lot of guys feel this way. Like your value depends on what you provide. Your money, your strength, your success, your ability to handle problems. A lot of men feel invisible unless they're accomplishing something. And if a man loses his job, loses confidence, struggles financially, or mentally breaks down, sometimes he feels like he loses his identity too. Because men are often taught that being valuable means being capable all the time. Meanwhile, women face a different kind of pressure. Women are judged heavily on appearance from a very young age. Social media probably made that even worse. Unrealistic beauty standards are everywhere. Filters, editing, influencers pretending perfection is normal. That absolutely affects mental health. Women also deal with a lot more fear in certain situations. Walking alone at night, harassment, safety concerns, that creates anxiety. Men often don't fully think about because we don't experience it the same way. And I think another major difference is support systems. Women, generally speaking, tend to have stronger emotional support networks. Female friendships often involve deeper emotional conversations. Men's friendships are usually different. A lot of male friendships are built around activities instead of emotional discussion. Guys will be best friends for 10 years and still barely know what's actually going on emotionally with each other. Like, honestly, two guys could play video games together every single night and never once ask, "Hey man, are you doing okay mentally?" And weirdly enough, I think a lot of men actually want those conversations. They just don't know how to start them without feeling awkward. Because for a lot of guys, vulnerability feels risky. I also think men and women are treated differently when they fail emotionally. If a woman cries publicly, people usually respond with concern. If a man cries publicly, reactions are more mixed. Some people are supportive, but others get uncomfortable immediately. And again, that teaches men to shut things down emotionally. Now, I do think things are improving somewhat. Mental health conversations are more common than they used to be. Therapy is less stigmatized. More people openly talk about anxiety and depression. But I also think the internet made certain things worse. People online sometimes reduce mental health discussions into trends or aesthetics instead of actual serious issues. And everybody suddenly acts like a psychologist after reading one TikTok clip. You'll see people diagnose themselves and everyone around them constantly. And honestly, I think overconsumption of negative content affects people too. If your entire feed is rage bait, bad news, toxic relationship content, people arguing, and constant negativity, eventually your brain starts absorbing that energy. Your environment affects your mindset more than people realize. This is kind of off topic, but I also think modern life in general is mentally exhausting. Everything moves too fast. People are expected to constantly perform, respond instantly, stay productive constantly. There's barely any silence anymore. Even boredom disappeared. Years ago, if you were waiting in line somewhere, you just stood there thinking. Now people immediately pull out their phones. Nobody has quiet moments anymore. And I think the constant stimulation fries people mentally. And another thing, I think both men and women are struggling with identity more now, too. A lot of people genuinely don't know who they are outside of what they consume online. Trends change constantly. Opinions change constantly. Everybody feels pressure to fit into groups or labels or aesthetics. Sometimes it feels like people are performing versions of themselves instead of actually living comfortably as themselves. And that absolutely impacts mental health. Going back to men specifically, one thing I personally think gets overlooked is how little emotional encouragement men sometimes receive. Men often remember compliments for years because they happen so rarely. That sounds almost funny, but it's true. A guy could get one genuine compliment and remember it for 5 years. And I think that says something. A lot of men are starved for emotional reassurance, but don't say it because they think admitting that sounds weak. And loneliness in men can become dangerous because men are more likely to isolate instead of reaching out. Some men genuinely feel like nobody would care if they disappeared emotionally. That's why checking on people matters more than people think. Not in a fake copy and paste mental health awareness post kind of way either. I mean, real conversations, real listening. Because sometimes people don't need solutions. Sometimes they just need somebody to genuinely hear them. Women also face emotional struggles that people dismiss too easily. Women are often stereotyped as over-emotional, which can make their real struggles get minimized. A woman expressing frustration or sadness sometimes gets labeled dramatic when she's actually genuinely struggling. And women deal with impossible standards constantly. Be confident, but not too confident. Be attractive, but effortless. Be successful, but still fit traditional expectations. That balancing act creates stress too. Honestly, I think both men and women feel misunderstood in different ways. Men often feel emotionally ignored. Women often feel emotionally dismissed. Those aren't exactly the same thing, but both hurt. I also think relationships play a huge role in mental health for both genders. Healthy relationships can improve mental health massively. Toxic relationships can destroy it. And I don't just mean dating either, like friendships, family relationships, work environments. All of it matters. The toxic environment changes how you think over time. Badly, stress affects them until they finally relax. Your body can normalize anxiety so much that calmness starts feeling unfamiliar. That's kind of scary, honestly. I also think people underestimate how many men hide depression behind humor. Some of the funniest people are struggling badly underneath everything. Humor becomes armor sometimes. And I think women are often more likely to seek help earlier, while men wait until things become unbearable. There's a difference between understanding someone's pain and enabling destructive behavior. I think balance matters. And this might sound random again, but music affects mental health heavily too. People really underestimate how emotional music is. Songs become attached to memories, breakups, phases of life, certain people. Music can heal people emotionally, but it can also trap people in certain moods if they constantly consume only dark content. Same with online communities, honestly. Some spaces help people heal. Other spaces encourage bitterness and hopelessness, especially with young men online right now. I think there's a growing problem where lonely men get pulled into toxic content that convinces them the world hates them completely. And while some of the pain they feel is real, feeding constant anger usually makes mental health worse, not better. Bitterness is addictive. And on the other side, women online deal with constant comparison culture and unrealistic standards constantly shoved at them. So both sides are getting mentally damaged in different ways online. I think one of the biggest similarities between men and women is fear of vulnerability, though. Everybody wants connection, but everybody's scared of rejection too. People want honesty, but honesty feels risky. That's human. And honestly, I think society in general needs more empathy, not fake internet empathy where people repost awareness graphics and move on. Real empathy, real patience, real listening, because mental health conversations shouldn't only happen after tragedies happen. And one thing I really wish more men understood is that strength and vulnerability are not opposites. Talking about struggles doesn't make somebody weak. If anything, admitting you're struggling takes more courage than pretending forever. But at the same time, I also understand why some men stay quiet. A lot of men have opened up before and regretted it. So trust becomes difficult. That's something I think people need to acknowledge honestly instead of dismissing immediately. And for women, I think their emotional struggles deserve to be taken seriously, without stereotypes attached constantly. Women shouldn't have to prove their emotions are reasonable to deserve support. At the end of the day, mental health isn't simple. Human beings aren't simple. Men and women experience many of the same emotions, but society shapes how those emotions get expressed and received differently. And honestly, maybe the biggest problem is that everybody's exhausted. Financial stress, relationship stress, social pressure, online pressure, future uncertainty. people are mentally tired. Sometimes I think people just want peace more than anything else. Not perfection, not fame, not constant excitement, just peace, a calm mind, good people around them, a stable life, a reason to wake up feeling okay. That's probably more valuable than people realize. And I think conversations like this matter because the more openly people talk about mental health, real mental health, not just surface level slogans, the easier it becomes for people to stop feeling alone. Because isolation convinces people their struggles are unique when they usually aren't. A lot of people are silently fighting battles they never talk about. And maybe if more people felt safe enough to be honest, things would get a little better. Not perfect, but better. And honestly, better is a good place to start.